All right. So I'm also God, I hope this works. We're gonna give this a try. Going to actually be OBS recording this, so I will post these. Should be up after class. We'll see how this recording is. I might, if this recording got all jacked up, we'll record next classes. But so it should be the same thing though, because I'm doing the same thing. So those will be available. I'll post them uh, onto Canvas. So, all right, let's start making a game. Yay! Obviously we're gonna want a player. So if we have a player, we need something for them to move on. So we're just gonna go ahead and create a plane. I'm gonna name it floor because why not? That's what it is. And we're just gonna make it scale 10 and 10. Give us a little bit of room to play. Just thinking for forward, we're going to actually go ahead and add a tag, and we're going to call the new tag floor. You never know when this is going to be helpful. And if I start going too fast, please be like, hey, slow down. So remember, when you enter your new tag, you have to go back to it to select it. You can't just be like, hey, that's what I did it for. And we're going to give it its own layer as well, because I think that will be fun at some point. And we're just going to call the layer environment. So if you click on layer on the drop down, it's got add layer at the very bottom, and then type it into one of the free layers. I still haven't figured out why 3 is the weird layer out, but hey, whatever. We won't be playing with it with this part, but prepping for next time. All right, and then we will eventually replace this with something cooler. But for our player, we're just going to create a cylinder, pop it up out of the floor because that's helpful. Once again, we'll just name it player. And we'll give it the player tag. And we're going to go ahead and create a player layer. Because that could come in handy as well. Currently, if we play it, even if we had movement, all we're going to have is the camera that's just floating off in the middle of nowhere. It's not really going to do us much good. So since we're going to make this a game, we're just going to go ahead and drag the main camera and attack it as a child to the player. And then we'll move it closer. What do we move this to? Going to move it up so it's got a perspective, move it in closer, and then we're going to rotate the camera down 20. So I've kind of got a nice third person perspective on this. And a white player on a white floor makes for, well, my eyes to hurt. So we're going to go ahead and create a new folder because we're going to add some materials as we go. So we'll create a folder, name it materials. And then inside the materials, we're going to create a material. And I'm just going to make it green. You can make it whichever color you want. A little darkish green. Sure. So, perfect. Thank you. So inside the material folder, if you just right click on it under create, it's about in the middle. There's material. No, so that's okay. So in the material folder, So I created a material folder. You don't have, unless you created the folder, you don't have it yet. So if you don't have the folder yet, create folder allows you to create a new folder. Inside that folder, you'll just right click in the folder. Once again, create. And then about halfway down the list, give or take, is the material. So, and then all you need to do on your main maps, this bar would usually be white. Just click on it and then isolate to the green if you want a red player, a blue player, yellow player. I don't really care. Just something that makes it stand out from the background at the moment is going to make it the best. And we will just for now, I'm just going to rename this player for the material. And then all we need to do is drag that material onto our player on the inspector, and poof, I'm green. All right. So we want to play with a new input system, which the new input system, like previously mentioned, is for whatever reason not just built in. So we need to go to our Windows General Package Manager. Oh, here we go. Package Manager. We want. I'm just going to go ahead and dock this up here. So in Window Package Manager, once again, about in the middle. Apparently everything that I like to grab is about in the middle. In the Package Manager, we have this first kind of tab. This is Packages, in Project. What we want to change this to is on the arrow, we want to do the Unity registry. So this has the like pseudo built-in pieces. They're quote in your build, but they're not fully installed. So if we scroll down into packages, and then we want the input system, so we can just click on that, and then we'll go ahead and install it. When it's eventually done installing, you're going to get a, do you want to restart? Yes, no. We're going to hit yes, because otherwise it doesn't actually go into being. There it is. So warning, once you get the warning, the restart warning, just yep. And it's going to go ahead and restart. Right? At least it's a lot faster to restart than the first time it is to build a new project.
Restart than it is to boot up.
Right. All right. So we should now have it here. And we'll get to it. What we want to do is go into our project settings, or yeah. Come on. Touch like you're supposed to. There we go. All right. So in our project settings, we have the input manager, which we're not using. And then we have the input system package, and this is what we are using. So we want to go ahead and create a settings asset. That puts it in. Supported devices, you can leave it blank for all of them. I usually try and just put in what I'm using. So we can hit the plus. The interface for this is horrible. I still can't figure out why it is this bad, but it is. So for myself, I'm just using the gamepad. So I can click on gamepad, but if I want to drill down, I have to go. There's a little arrow here, but even if I hover over the arrow, it doesn't actually register. Yeah, so if I go all the way over the side, I can drill down, which is just great. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm using an Xbox controller. And so I can click on Xbox, and then if I hit the enter key, then it actually is like, oh, hey, yeah, that's what you're doing. Rather than like double click or any form of enter, return tends to work the best. So now we have that, and you'll see in.
You said click on gamepad.
Yeah.
It won't open up.
So click all, like literally, you're about to fall off the box on the right hand side. It will finally turn to.
There we go.
Like literally just about to go off of it.
And we go Xbox controller.
Yeah. And I'll see what, in a little bit, I will go, I should have a big old pile of Xbox controllers in the back. So I will see if they are where I believe they are. So now if you look in our main assets folder, you should have an input system, which is great.
So we just click on Xbox controller and that's it.
Yep, that's all you need to do at the moment. We want to go though into, while we're here in our project settings, we want to go to player, which is just a few down. If we scroll down player 2, which is its configuration, at the bottom of configuration, it says active input handling. This is where that Theron, you'd asked about the old and new. This is where it says new. So you can leave it both. If I'm using it, I tend to just set it to the input system package new, just so it's there. And we get to reload again because I love Unity.
Where's project settings?
Project setting is under edit. And this time it's towards the bottom, almost the bottom, project settings. And then that will open up, once again, your project settings. We want to, in the input system package, you're going to create that original input system, which is going to give us our input system here in our assets. And then we want to, like I said, make sure that player input system package new. All right. So then we now need to create our new input system. So if you are in your assets folder, I usually do it on the outside one just so I don't have to go digging for it later. We're going to go ahead and once again right click. We're going to go back up to create. And then down at the very, very bottom is input actions. Click on that. It's going to pop something up. We're just going to I'm going to call it my controls for how I'm tracking it. And now we have the ability to start entering our own inputs. So we can edit the asset, which pops up in the my controls input actions. I'm going to dock it down here. But there's literally nothing in there yet. It's empty. We need to start building that input actions. So first we're going to create our own controller scheme. So click on no controller scheme. We want to add a controller scheme. Name it what you would like to name it. What did I name it? For my own consistency's sake. Oh, I didn't write it. We're just going to call it pool controls. Doesn't matter. For this, once again, because we're doing this now for specific controls, we want to, where it says list is empty, we're going to go ahead and dive into the gamepad, the Xbox controller, just like we've done previously, and select it. And for this, we're going to make it required. We're going to say, if you want to, well, I can pass mine on that. It's fine. We're going to make it required. It's all grades. So now we have an actual control scheme. So we can continually add new and new control schemes if we want. Saving your...
When I try to click on it, it still says list is empty.
So click on it and then hit the enter button. So highlight and then enter. You can turn on autosave if you want. Probably is the smarter choice. I usually just keep trying to remember to hit save asset. But this is where we're going to create our action map. So you can have, once again, multiple action maps for different aspects. Quite often, the main ones tend to be the player and like the user interface, because quite often we have certain buttons that affect just our player, and then sometimes we reuse those buttons in our user interface and menus, so we can have the two, so we can track different ones. So what we're going to want to do, we're going to build an action map today for our player. So click the plus next to action map and type in player. That gives us, it automatically pops in and starts to populate like, hey, if you're starting a new one, maybe we need to now have a new action. And then our actions have action properties through them. So we're going to do that. I'm going to actually real quick pause this. Okay, so we'll go back to this. So let's create our move action. Fabulous. Thank you. Oh, hold on. All right, I'll go grab those in a minute. All right, so let's first create our movement action, right? It's great to have a player, but if they can't move, who really gives a shit? I'm not really sure which game you can make if your player never moves. So there's got to be some form of movement, right?
Well, have you played any turret section from the early 2000s?
I have not. There's got to be something. We're going to pretend. So we're going to call...
Well, what about how this move?
I suppose it's true.
Technically, movement and rotation
Players
are
can't
considered
play
together
it.
as statistic. Well,
They're not
if you're
using
using-
True, but some way your player's moving, whether it's rotating or like physically moving. True. We'll get to rotation as well.
I was gonna say, are we talking about moving within a 3D space? Or are we talking about moving as a camera?
That's you.
There is a distinct difference.
I started getting these fabulous texts from people that were trying to scam the hell out of me. Oh my God. Wow, everybody wants something at the moment. All right, so we've changed our action to move. That is what we're trying to do. Because we're moving, we want to set our action type from button to pass through. So we're passing the values that are coming in from the controller to our player. And we're going to actually, since we're going to be using the stick for it, not the D-pad, it's a vector 2. So it's going to have a up, down, left, right is what we can do with our stick. Yes.
What was the stick
Not sure. It might do it. This is the way that I've learned to do it. So,
Is this like a joystick or something?
it could be. It probably does the same thing to a degree. Knowing these programs, they have like 14 different ways that you can do it. There's probably like one little tiny difference to it. But so we've got to move. We've said that it's going to be passing the information through, and that we're getting our data in a vector 2. But we don't have anything yet, right? So what we need to do is click the plus symbol next to move. And we want to add an up, down, left, right composite. So this is basically building our bindings for it for the 2D vector. And we need to go ahead and assign them. So for up, we want to click on the path. You're going to click on gamepad. And
It won't let us, what do we click on to move that?
to which part?
Clicking on the up where it says no binding, it's not letting us change it.
So binding path.
Oh, on the right, sorry.
Now you're good. We want it under the gamepad if it's not currently on the gamepad. And for this, we're going to do the left stick. And so we will click on up to highlight up. You should be able to double click, but you can't. So hit the return. That's going to enter it in there. Do the same for the rest. Down. Yep, left stick. Left stick left. And left stick right. I highly recommend just doing a quick scan through to make sure you've got them right. As I was playing with this last night, I had hit left stick right for both left and right, which made it really awkward for a few minutes until I figured it out. So left stick up, left stick down, left stick left, and left stick right.
If you click on the word, it does, double click on the word, it does edit.
Did it actually? It wasn't for me, so all right. We now have the framework for the new input system for movement, but it hasn't done anything yet. So we want to go to our player. So in your hierarchy, select your player. And then we should be able to drag my controls to your player. Minimize those. Oh, no, that's right. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Reading my notes was really helpful. We want to click on Add Component on your player. That's what we wanted. And we can start by typing input. And we want the player input.
Player input or player input manager?
Player input. And send that. For this, for our actions, we're going to drag the My Controls to the actions. And we can change our default scheme. We want to change that to our cool controls or whatever you labeled yours. And that, we attach camera to camera. And that should be it for the moment. All right. Yeah, main camera to camera. Okay, we're going to. Your in the actions is where you'll put whatever you called your controllers. Everything else, the UI input module stays none for the moment. Default's none. Auto switch stays clicked. So even with this, if you had a controller, which I now know where they are supposedly, so I'll go get those in a few minutes. You still can't do anything. Like, hey, we've built the bones of this, but we need to now connect it. So, and we connect it through script. So we're going to start, I'm going to create a new folder because I like to keep my scripts contained. So scripts folder. Inside the scripts folder, we're going to go ahead and create a C# script. And for this, I'm going to call it player controller. And open it up. Let me want to pause again for a quick moment since I now know where the controllers are supposedly. And let me go see if they're actually there.
It already looks better. Gee.
I know, right? There's two in a box. So you see one box. So there's grab a box. Grab a box. So you got one already. Yep, there's two in a box.
Oh, there's two.
Two in a box. There's supposed to be two in a box. That feels empty. Grab a different box.
So you got an extra sushi.
Alright, perfect. Box. A box. Need one more.
Say that, but they are Xbox.
Are they?
Yeah. Why did you
That box? I think you gotta put it back.
We still need a controller. There should be two in a box. Does anybody else still need a controller? Speak now, forever hold your pieces. All right. You need one or
Whatever, even if it's sushi landfill. Mine is a nice box. One. Might have a funky design, but I have. Advanced. Because it's gonna be so different from yours.
I'll take your word for it. Good for you, buddy.
Totally not. Not. Not hoping.
Are you able to get it better? No.
Think you're deep.
This is why, yeah.
You're saying I have a lane at fucking yeah, you're right. Yeah. Did you guys have a cool? You guys have a cool design?
But I have one of the off-brand ones that's all archy.
Like the see-through kind.
It's not see-through, unfortunately. I went before that. It was see-through, but I started getting really bad stick drives. And because I used my controller,
I don't care. I don't get controllers are no. Like,
they are. I can't really
So all right. So so now we have our script that we're going to use. And this is where we're going to connect our movement to. In the using section, we want to go up and add using the Unity engine. Just kidding. The engine dot input system. That's what we want. For this, we're going to add a couple variables. We'll serialize field a couple of them. Reminder, serialize field allows us to set it as private, but be able to see it in the inspector and do some settings to that. So we're going to do a private. This is going to be a game object, and we'll just call it player. We're going to serialize field one more. This will be, or I guess two more. We're going to do two floats. Private float. We're going to do movement speed. And rotation speed. We're going to create, this one does not need access. We're just going to create a straight private. It's going to be a vector 3 because we're going to translate. Our inputs come in via vector 2, so up, down, left, right, or forward, back, left, right, whichever way you want to think about it. But we're working in a 3D space, so we need to be able to translate that to that. So we're going to create the vector 3, and that's going to be our movement direction.
So it's vector 3, not vector 2.
So vector 3 is, since we're working in a 3D space, we now have to have forward, back, left, right, up, down. Even though we won't be moving anything technically in the up, down, we still need it there for the calculations. And since we're using our input system, we're going to create a public because we want to be able to just drag into it. Input action reference. And we're going to call it movement. So this is grabbing the input action reference, is grabbing the inputs from our input system. I don't think any of those. We're going to keep modifying this, but for this one, what we want to do, there's lots of ways of doing it. I like to kind of compartmentalize when I'm doing my code as much as possible. Just makes it a little easier to read. And once again, I'm a lazy coder, so the easier it is to read just from the start, the better for me. So we're going to go ahead and create another void player movement. That's what we'll call it. And so in our updates, currently there's nothing. So honestly, if we ran this, nothing's going to happen. We want to every round or every frame, we're going to call player movement. We're going to say, hey, at the start, go check player movement. See what's happening there. So as we started before, we now want to fill in that vector 3. So in our player movement, we're going to set the movement direction to equal movement, which is grabbing once again our input action reference movement, which is an action. And we want, since we're passing through the values, we're going to, oh, really? I really wish there was a button to turn off the touchpad. We want to read we're gonna minus equals 1, right? So we're gonna take 1 bullet away from our current bullet pool. We're not tracking that yet. We're not tracking that yet. So we're going to take and create a game object. We're going to instantiate one of our bullet prefabs. So we're going to make a new bullet game object, and we're going to instantiate the bullet prefab, because that's what we've got our placeholder for our bullet. And we're going to instantiate that as a game object. We're going to say, take this prefab, make it a new game object called bullet for the system. We're going to, if it isn't already, we're going to set active to true, right? So if it's not currently already active, we want to make sure that it's on, because otherwise we don't see the bullet, which does not good for us. Then we're going to transform where the bullet's positioned to equal our bullet launch point. Oops, bullet. Bullets launch point, transform position. So we want to get where's the launch point currently, and we're going to move the bullet to that launch point position. We also, because we're going to do like we did with the jump, we're going to add force to the bullet to fire it. We also then want to make sure that we are creating the rotation to the same rotation as the player, which is the same as the launch point. So we want the rotation of the bullet, transform rotation, launch point, rotation. So we're going to match exactly the direction, the position and rotation, so that when we do it, it's going to fire exactly forward. And we do that through getting the rigid body of the bullet. We're going to add force to the bullet launch point, transform up. So this is we're saying forward from the launch point, and we're going to set it at 50. We're going to say launch this thing. And like we did previously, our force mode is impulse. So we're just applying that force real quick in that direction. Yes.
We make a serialized field for like a bullet speed variable, so that way.
100%. Yeah, so if you have a gun that fires a bullet slower, or you pick up a speedy bullet, something, you can also change how long in between shots fired, right? So we're going to set it to a half a second, which we'll do in just a moment. With this, though, we want to do 2 last things. We want to change the bullet text, right? So we've removed a bullet, so we want to remove that from our counter total. So we're going to update the bullet text because we've already minused a bullet. And we're going to, I'm going to do it down here first, an IE numerator, which is a way of doing a coroutine. So this is going to happen outside of the normal system. So we're going to call this a shooting pause, right? We want to say, okay, you fired a bullet, you can't fire right away. So we're going to run a counter basically here, which is yield, turn new, wait 4 seconds, 0.5f. So we're saying wait for a half a second. And then at the end of that half a second, you're going to do is shooting false. So now we can go back and shoot another one. And all we need to do with this to connect to that is, I hate this touchpad. Start a coroutine, and we do shooting pause, Okay, woo. So what's this doing, right? Once again, we don't want to just go on to rapid fire. So is it shooting? Yep, it's shooting. So now if you pull the trigger a second time right now, it's not going to do anything. We've shot a bullet. So now we need to subtract one from our bullet counter. We're instantiating the bullet prefab as an actual game object now. We're moving it to position. We're making sure it's pointed in the right direction. We're adding force to it. Once again, this time it's at 50, but once, like you said, this can be a variable easily. We want to change our text because we've removed a bullet. And then we want to start our coroutine to say like, hey, just wait a half a second. And then as soon as that half a second's up, now you can fire the bullet again. All right, if everything went according to plan, we're gonna come.
Having this, it won't let me still pick up the gun. It's nothing wrong with the code or.
Sure, I will come and look at it in just a moment. So in our player, right, we want to drag our bullet prefab into bullet prefab. We want to add our launch point to bullet launch point, and shooting, as we've done previously, we're going to come through and add our player shoot input. All right, we're going to cross fingers. We're hoping for the best. We're going to hit play. We're going to go up. We're going to pick up that gun. I've got 10. Oh. Object game object has been destroyed.
It's the gun when you pick it up. It's just throwing an error, but that's not. At least that's what.
We are not shooting. All right, let's.
You push bullet under bullet prefab. It's destroyed. Oh, I'm playing with myself.
It shouldn't be. So you can do. We can, in our project settings, go to physics. Oh, let's do. So if we go to our bullet prefab in the actual prefab folder, we can create a tab. No, we can just do this way because it's currently on default. So we can say default and player can't hit. I don't know if that's going to fix the problem or not, though. Live demos are fabulous because you just always hit these moments. That's good. Where are you? So let's maybe let's delete the bullet from the scene because we don't need it there. That might be the reason we're having issues. It's hitting something. Bullet, we're destroying it at that point if it's there. I bet you, hold on. Change your, it should be this, change your transform of your bullet, make sure your position is 0, 0, 0. And we'll just turn it off for the moment because we do set it to on. Let's see if that does it. All right, that means it's shooting in the wrong direction. Oh, I think this is supposed to be forward. Let's try that. No? Where's it got? It's got a rigid body. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Is shooting, has the gun, has born bullets. It is shooting. Game object. Shooting is true. Bullets is -1. Then we're at game object, bullet, insatiate bullet brief. I think, nah, that's why. Make sure that you're dragging the, in your player, so this is, I think, where my issue was, make sure that you are dragging the correct launch point. I was grabbing the launch point from the gun that was in the environment that I dropped. That is probably what will do it.
Where do we put the launch point again?
There we go. It's destroying the ground. Launch point should be just in front of your gun.
Right, so then we put this. When I shoot my character.
So for some reason it's going down. Let's. Is it a forward?
The launch point should be in front of our player.
Yes, in front of the gun that you, your player's gun.
The player's gun, and then for the gun itself,
The gun itself doesn't really need a launch point, but we just have it there.
no, it's just whenever I try to get to the counter, it just knocks it over. It doesn't do it. I don't know what the counter is.
Sure. Give me just a minute. So I want to make sure so then we can move on. We'll figure out why the floor is destroying later. It's fine. I want to make sure there's time for us to meet. But at least the counter now is in free fall. It's great. But the counter is not working. And so when I get to 0, now I can't fire anymore. No more bullets. So sad. All right. We will debug this later and we will move on to some more information next week. We're going to keep building on this every week. So please make sure you save it. I have created, once again, a recording. I'll make sure the recording goes up today so you can rewatch this and go. Let me turn that off.